Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and I can't start today's show without talking about the ISO 10002. You know, some people just love to complain, but companies have a responsibility to care. The International Organization for Standardization, ISO, has revised ISO 10002, the standard for complaint handling. This document enables organizations to foster a customer-focused environment open to feedback, heightening their customer satisfaction. You can get the ISO 10002 standard from the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, the U.S. member body of ISO. Visit ANSI.org/complain to learn more. That's ANSI.org/complain to learn more.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs of one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Lance Graulich, and Lance is the founder and CEO of Ion Franchising, an industry-leading franchise consulting and development group that represents over 500 franchise brands and business opportunities within 90 categories. Lance helps prospective entrepreneurs find their perfect franchise for free. He also assists independent business owners in creating a franchise system. We're going to talk to Lance about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Lance Graulich, and Lance is the founder and CEO of Ion Franchising, an industry-leading franchise consulting and development group that represents over 500 franchise brands and business opportunities within 90 categories. Hi, Lance. Happy New Year. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marty. Great to be here. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Lance. It's great to have you on this show. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from today, Lance?
I'm calling from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Lucky you, right? It's cold here in Pennsylvania today, Lance. So I'd kill to be in Las Vegas today. That's fantastic. How's the weather there today?
Well, it's a desert, so it was pretty cold this morning, or still is morning over here where I am.
That's right. That's
anyway, it should get to 60 today. We'll see.
You have, such an impressive background. When I was reading your biography, Lance, I thought, maybe we can kind of go back to the beginning, and you could tell our listeners, how you got even involved in franchising.
Well, that all starts. I grew up in New York, born in Brooklyn, grew up in Long Island, and Dad was on Wall Street, and I thought I was following him. It seemed like a great career, and it is a great career, or was a great career.
Yeah.
And spent my high school time period, college, working at the firm. They were the largest over-the-counter trading house on Wall Street. My dad was headed up the retail side, really as a stockbroker, and I enjoyed it. But once I was out of college, I started realizing, I did work in bars and restaurants throughout college, and I liked that side of it. And then I had a crazy uncle who was originally from Brooklyn, moved to Arizona. Wow. And he was very successful in tech before anybody even knew what tech was, which is a whole other story. And he made a bunch of money. He moved out to Arizona, and he after a period of time, he heard I was bored, called my other uncle and said, "What's Lance doing? I need him. I just bought 4 TGI Fridays restaurants. Need somebody to help me run this thing." And then we grew that. Period of about 5 years through acquisition, new store openings to over $225 million a year. 65 plus stores. We were the largest franchisee for Fridays, of course.
Wow.
And that was a great run. That was sort of my MBA in restaurants and franchising, and understanding why franchising can be so powerful and amazing. I sat on our committee where every 3 months I went to Dallas, which is where Fridays corporate was, to see the new either seasonal items or new menu items in general. But Fridays, it was interesting. Change is good sometimes, but in other cases, change is not good. And Fridays, when their leadership team, the 2 gentlemen that were running it, they were incredible. When they left, let's just say the franchisor lost focus, in my opinion. And added frozen fries, which was not something they should have done. And then it was kind of easy to tinker with every other menu item to attempt to save money or, make it easier in the kitchen. And, there's an example of a franchise brand that was great at one point and lost its luster.
I met my wife in a TGI Fridays, Lance. That's it's interesting listening to your story. But
I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And originally, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, Carroll Gardens area. When I was just reading your story, I said, "Oh my God, we have so much in common." But I've noticed the same thing too with TGI Fridays, Lance. We used to be big fans of Fridays, and we don't go there like we used to. It has changed a bit. And like you said, like any brand, sometimes they really they fall off track, don't they?
Yeah, we can have a whole segment just on customer service. That'll be my first book on hiring and customer service for the restaurant industry, especially the franchise side. There was an amazing company culture at Fridays, and they did everything was amazing. The training was phenomenal. I'm staring at my bookshelf here, and I have all kinds of information still from Fridays back in the day, believe it or not, and a recipe book that's about 9 inches thick.
Wow.
That was items really made from scratch, which certainly isn't the case today. I can't imagine how much is frozen today in that kitchen.
Right.
But yeah, company culture is a huge thing. They had an amazing culture where the staff was really woven within that environment of certainly providing that wow factor. If you remember, Fridays.
Sure.
That's what it was called. It was the wow factor. It was the first brand that really brought that to the table, literally. It took up.
Sure, of course. Yeah, absolutely. What was the catalyst then, Lance? Again, I can kind of guess, but here you are. You have all of this experience. I imagine that was probably one of the catalysts for starting Ion Franchising. And look where you guys are today. It's incredible. What is it like, representing like 500 franchise brands and business opportunities?
It's more like we're over 600 now.
Is it really? Oh my God, that's incredible. I mean, that's a big number. I don't think I've had anyone like yourself on the show, that represented that many different brands, and I get it. Why you started the company, is again because you have all of this experience, and we've started this show 14 years ago. I've always been drawn to franchising. I love the franchise model, Lance. I think it gives people an opportunity to be an entrepreneur that maybe they don't have those entrepreneurial skills. So what do you like most about franchising?
Well, what I definitely like most about franchising is there's a system. I think it was Tony Robbins that made the Tony Robbins quote was model success. And that's what franchising is. You don't have to think too hard. Right. As you certainly know, Marty, there's a process, including the validation stage where you talk to franchisees. But, you're not – look, if you have a burning desire to create your own brand, go right ahead and do it. But if you don't, which most people don't, and they have no idea where to start, a franchise is perfect for anybody looking to be their own boss. Right. Right. It was interesting, too. I love that Tony Robbins quote. I think he said, success leaves closed any or something like that, And exactly. That's the other one. It's so powerful, isn't it? And that's when I was reading your biography. I said I couldn't wait to have you on the show. What was interesting when I was looking at your services, too, Lance, is that you also get involved in assisting independent business owners in creating a franchise system. And that, that's not easy. It's interesting in that we've done about 750 shows up to this point. And we've had some really great concepts on this show that, I kind of thought that they were going to be like the next big thing, and maybe a couple years later, they just kind of faded away. How do you know, when someone's ready to franchise their business? Yeah. Well, the first thing I ask everyone that is an independent business that has some success, I always ask them the question, what is your secret sauce? Why are you different from your competition? Yeah. And it's also a little test because, if they can answer that question effectively, that means they've looked at their competition. Guys like Ray Kroc, everybody knows Ray Kroc from McDonald's, outrageous success, pioneer. He'll tell you a lot of times he would never even looked at the competition because sometimes when you're looking behind you, people will catch up. Right. Nowadays, I really think a true competitive analysis is important. And look, today, Marty, as you certainly know, it's all about social media. It's all about what people are saying about you. Your reputation is everywhere now. In the old days, it wasn't. Now, so for someone like myself, when a brand, an entrepreneur comes to me and says, "Hey, Lance, I want to set up," we set up a new brand out of Atlanta, a couple of brands out of Atlanta recently, and it was easy to look them up online. It was easy to see what people are saying about them, and it's amazing to see when you see the amazing success somebody's has. There's an opportunity for growth. It's not a mistake, especially when they've hit a couple of different cities. They have some sort of proof of concept. It's not like they're in one area, but nevertheless, it's really what is their secret sauce and how does that resonate with their current customer base and how would that resonate with their future customer base? Right. I think what I've noticed too, Lance, over the years is some of the concepts that I thought were going to be big. I noticed too that they kind of franchised a little bit too soon. In other words, they started this business and they really they only had the one unit. You know what I mean? So it's interesting, as I think it's like you have to have this track record, of course, you know what I mean? And you have to just make sure that you're ready for it because it certainly is a different animal. When I first got involved in franchising, and I know you probably had the same experience, I think there was only about maybe 70 different industries. And I think there was about 1,200 different franchise systems in the U.S. Yeah. Today, I mean, there's so much to choose from, isn't there? I mean, it just seems like every year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, Do you have any favorite categories that you like? I mean, again, I know you work with a lot of different categories, but what are some of the most popular categories and what are some categories that, if you can mention that you really like or you think stand out? Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you can't dispute the fact that whether there's a pandemic or not, the small restaurant category, typical fast casual under 2,000 square feet, brands that are doing quite a bit of takeout and delivery, they're still going strong. Some people think, I don't want to be in a restaurant. I have friends that are up 10 to 30% over last year. So the restaurant category is forever safe. The large restaurant category, like we were talking about TGI Fridays, you can't touch it right now because there's too much unknown. The home repair, home maintenance category was doing well before the pandemic has exploded. Everyone that's spending more time in their house, staring at their kitchen, that they now have no longer delayed the remodel. They're in full remodel of their kitchen. So, home repair and maintenance, whether you're plumbing franchises, electricians, home repair, kitchen remodel, bath remodel. There's a lot of low-cost, high ROI. I mean, I have quite a few home repair brands, and there are tons of them that you're going to get your money back. I have some that you'll get your money back in 4 months.
That's incredible
on average. And so they're the low cost, high ROI brands in that category are amazing. B2B is still hot, especially if you can control costs. One of my favorites that I'm sure you know is Schooley Mitchell.
Sure.
Schooley Mitchell is a low cost.
Yeah, I think we had them on the show actually.
Yeah, Dennis Schooley is amazing. I just did another deal with them, and incredible because before the pandemic, they did what I would have wanted if I was Dennis Schooley, face-to-face visits, work on a contingency basis. Hey, I'm going to save you money in one of these 4 or 5 categories, which all small to medium businesses, use those services. And obviously they had to pivot to Zoom calls or phone calls. And really what it's done is it's made the business more efficient. Nobody's stuck in traffic any longer. You're still getting ear to ear with your customer, and boy, that franchise just Dennis has waived royalties for the first year.
Wow.
For new franchisees, he didn't have to because his business has exploded nonetheless. It was just a nice thing to do to get additional recognition, but just an amazing brand. I have another one called M3 Linked, and M3 Linked is also B2B. They were only face-to-face prior to the pandemic. Incredibly successful model. Basically, it helps entrepreneurs grow. Professional development, networking, board of advisors, incredible brand. But what I don't think anybody else did. So they didn't love Zoom that much. They didn't like the breakout effect of it. So they quickly put their money to work and developed their own Zoom-like system.
Wow.
And then their franchise expansion, I think at that point, definitely exploded because people got to see that technology, which is a big piece of some franchise growth these days. And and people just loved it. And you're not walking into what seems like a cold, sterile Zoom call where you don't feel like you're really there. With their technology, you actually feel like you're in the room with other people. You can click on the people and you can talk to them privately or publicly or whatever. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. There's a funny, I don't know if you've seen the Progressive commercial where they're all like on a Zoom call together. They're kind of like mocking Zoom. You know what I mean? It's like it's just the things you see on Zoom. It's crazy. I think that's a great story. And what surprised me too, Lance, is like some of the categories. Over the years I've interviewed dental franchises, iLab franchises, chiropractic franchises. It's crazy. I always say, like, where does it end? You know what I mean? At some point, like, it just seems like, so many different industries have this appreciation for the franchise model. And I think that's what makes it difficult. I'm not sure if it's difficult for you, but like when you're meeting with, like, let's say someone who's interested in buying a franchise, how do you know that they're going to be a good fit for franchising? Like, what questions do you ask them?
Well, that's a great question. I do ask a ton of questions, but I also get some help because I do have a what I call a scientific assessment that assesses their mindset, their skill level, really what they're thinking, and it's 10 or 15-minute assessment. It's a free assessment. It actually spits out actual brands at the end of it for me.
Wow, that's amazing. But
it gives me an idea, and it's on my website. It's free. Everything I do is free for people on the search side, of course. But, the questions I ask about hobbies. I ask about, I have a gentleman who one of his hobbies, he loved cars. So maybe an auto franchise is right for him, or maybe it's not. But you're right. I mean, to be honest, here's the beauty of franchising. The beauty of franchising, as you certainly know, is just taking a system with an obvious profit path where they can actually make money. There's some success. And, you know, you're lending that system and level of support and know-how to everyday people to become part of your franchise system. And it can be in any category. So there are many ways in franchising that people can make money. Now, kind of like dating, I equate it all to dating, Marty. How do you know if you think you're looking for a blonde or you think you're looking for a brunette? And,
that's a good example.
You know, and I'll tell you, I surprise people sometimes. And I tell a story of a good friend of mine who's bald, never knew how to cut hair, never worked in a salon, and he ended up a 20-unit franchisee of a major salon brand. And when he was initially presented that idea, he thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. But again, we're helping people based on the benefit or the results that they're looking for. So Marty, if you came to me and said, Lance, I don't want to spend more than $200,000, you know, I got at least 50, 60, 70 grand. Well, we can get you an SBA loan. You put down about 50, you get into that, or 40, you get into that hair salon, only 40 grand out of your pocket. And it fits everything that we just discussed. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. You're not cutting hair. But you hang out, smile at customers, and at some point you're an absentee or semi-absentee owner because you put a team in place.
Right.
In the beginning, you got to work.
Yeah.
So the hardest part is absolutely, because I have so many. I could narrow everybody. Everybody can have 3 amazing options that would fit them. Right. Great. It's great to have choice. Now pick the one that you want the best. Go down that path. Let me make an introduction for you. Talk to the brands, and it will materialize to you whether you like A, B, or C.
Yeah, I think it's great to have a choice. You know, and this is really where, you know, someone like yourself, I mean, really comes in handy, Lance, you know, because I think, you know, sometimes people, yes, they are a fit for franchising. They're good at following a system. They're good at following rules and things like that. But I think sometimes what happens is sometimes they go into the wrong type of franchise. You know, it's just not a match for them. You know what I mean? And I think that could be a problem. And that's where your service really comes in handy. You kind of like can steer them or say, go this way or go that way. I remember interviewing a couple of franchisees many years ago, Lance, and they were surprised. They got into, I think it was like fish window cleaning or a window cleaning franchise or something like that. You know, they remember them telling me, they said they were really surprised that they love the model so much. I can't remember if they worked with a franchise consultant or not, you know, but they were really surprised. They said, we love it, but we never imagined, you know, getting into this type of business. You know, I think when it was recommended to them, they're like, you're crazy, you know, but they thought about it. They spoke about it, and very, very happy.
You know, Marty, to your exact point, I'm working with a very smart private equity guy, and I presented him a commercial cleaning brand that has a master franchise model that he would be perfect for.
Right.
But he's also looking at home care and really likes that model. Came into me, you know, to me with that notion. He liked the home care. And look, some people have preferences. Some people, I get people that tell me, I don't want a restaurant. And I have plenty of other people that say, I absolutely do want a restaurant. So, but you're right. There's a lot of times it's like a round peg in a square hole. I have a gentleman I'm working with now that absolutely wants a restaurant, but really he's not well capitalized. So it's not going to be a good fit. So I have plenty of other options for him that he does want that financial freedom. His pension is not going to be enough, and I said, hey, look, I got plenty of other options for you. There's no worries here.
And you talk about that too, don't you? I know you do like a lot of like webinars and presentations and things like that. You know, one of your topics is, you know, how to finance a franchise. You know, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because it's not inexpensive. You know, I mean, we've had concepts on the show where relatively like inexpensive, like some of like the made franchises are fairly easy to get into, but then there's some other ones that have been on our show. You know, it's like we're talking, you know, $750 million to get into. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people are always trepidatious about the whole finance process. You
know, look, and I always tell everybody, look, if you've purchased a home, which quite a few people have, and you've gone through that process, then you understand what franchise finance will be like.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
It's similar. And, but there are so many lending options out there today. And as most people know, the best brands have the easiest opportunity to finance. But the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they throw money at the franchise world because they love it. They know it's going to help people. It's better chance of success. So you have the traditional SBA type loan where you're going to put down 25%.
Right.
And they want to see that after you put down that 25%, let's say it's, $50,000 you're putting down, they want to make sure that you do have some capital and obviously a way to live and pay your bills after that. So they're looking for the after the deal capitalization or liquidity. Sure. So you can keep yourself afloat. And there's all different rules depending on that. Great veteran deals these days, amazing veteran deals.
That's true.
I think 14% of franchising today, franchise owners are veterans. The last I heard.
Right.
But what a lot of people don't know, Marty, and I'm still surprised. I mean, I grew up in a Wall Street family. There's a lot of, dad was licensed and everything, so I heard about this. But there's, I think, on the books since the 70s, you can take money out of your 401k and invest in yourself. I mean, because all a 401k is pulling money out pre-tax and investing it in the market. But it's been on the books probably since the 70s, and a lot of people are doing it today. In the last 10, 15 years, it's been a big deal. And the acronym is ROBS, which is funny. You're robbing from yourself, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. But no, ROBS is rollover business startup. That's what ROBS stands for. And you're pulling money from yourself. There's now a corporation you set up, and you have to have an intermediary, a third party that does this. I have multiple groups that do this. And it's incredible, though. You can use your money. I talked to a gentleman the other day. He's only got $40,000 cash. He's got about $195,000 in his 401k.
Okay.
So we're going to do a ROBS. He's going to pull out about 110.
Okay.
And he's going to start a franchise, with that money. And he's basically borrowing against his own money. He doesn't have an enormous amount of interest or fees he's going to end up paying. So that's an incredible way to do it. There's other options as well. But look, if somebody just has a 680 credit score, it's not like buying a house where if your credit's higher, you get a lower interest rate. The interest rates are typically standard with the SBA, especially if you go in that route. But you're going to get a loan. We'll figure it out. I do have some people that come to me that have too much money. They might have $1 million in cash. Well, if you want a $100,000 franchise and you show the SBA $1 million in cash, there is a rule with the SBA. If you have 1.5 times the cash on hand as to what you're looking to borrow, you're excluded. It wasn't actually something that was always enforced, but it's certainly being enforced these days.
Wow.
So, but where there's a will, there's a way. Mindset is everything. And there's another quote I love is clarity is currency. And I try to get people really clear on what fits for them and give them choice. So the easiest thing for them is here, pick from these three at this point. Sometimes it takes me a couple of rounds of showing them different brands, and we continue to filter and fine-tune the search. But again, it's all free. And people really get to discover. It's like I tell people, again, like early in this conversation, Marty, it is like dating. How many people go on one date and get married? No, we go on many dates.
Right.
That's how it goes. And that's what I want to do is I want to introduce you, and you can have a coffee date over the phone with your this franchisor, that franchisor. And if you get really serious, it's like, dinner with the parents. Meet the parents when you meet the corporate guys,
Right.
Or gals.
Powerful. That's great. What is the average cost today, Lance? I know that's one of the questions you answer in your in your presentations. An average is always a deceiving number, because it's in the middle. But how do you typically answer that question?
Well, I think the average of the people that I'm talking to, the average is probably right at $150,000.
Okay.
There are quite a few, as you know, much higher than that. But I have quite a few people that are looking at brands that are under $70,000. So, and I have quite a few that are doing deals way over that. But 150 to 175 is probably the average of the people I'm speaking to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the motivation, Lance? I mean, when these people are coming to you, who are they? I mean, are they do they have like a background in business before, and then they've kind of they've been downsized, and then they say, well, maybe I should go into my own business, but of course franchising would could be a better option. I mean, what's some of the motivations for buying?
Such a good question, Marty. Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that question, but basically a third to half of the people that I talk to are what I call corporate refugees. Either they have lost their job due to business conditions, or they were let go for other reasons, or I placed a gentleman with an amazing concept, home-based model, that came to me saying, yep, I've been a corporate guy for 25 years, and the next 5 years I'm not going to have a job. Because so much is happening overseas. I need to find myself something so I don't have to rely. I don't want to rely on anybody else. I don't want to worry about the future anymore and get another job and another job from there. He said, forget it. I want my own thing. And he's happy as heck with his brand he's at. But then the other part are people that maybe, are doing a job. I mean, I spoke to a guy that works for a concrete supplier. Fantastic, smart guy, young guy, young family, and he's worked different jobs as GM or this or that, AGM, and he is tired of working for other people. And there's a lot of people, though, when they first start looking, are nervous. They don't understand a lot of facets of it just yet. But at the end of the day, as they get more and more comfortable, not only talking to me, but talking to brands, they develop a better comfort zone and a larger comfort zone, I should say, in that they're more ready to take on the task of becoming their own boss. But look, I always explain to people that franchising is made. I told somebody the other day about a restoration brand, and restoration, if there's a flood or fire or mold remediation, whatever it might be. And his immediate reaction was, well, I don't know anything about being a contractor. So here's the beautiful thing about pretty much any franchise. They don't want you to have experience necessarily in that industry or even a similar industry, because you're going to come to the table with some sort of preconceived notions that really they're going to have to break you of old bad habits.
That's true.
And that's why franchising is so successful, because, and like you asked in this question, what does it really take? Well, it just takes somebody that is smart, common sense, and your past, there is some predictability based on what you've done in the past.
Sure.
And, and that's something that the brand just needs to be able to pick up on. You don't have to have an MBA. You don't have to work at some, outrageous company as the senior vice president of anything. But if you're looking to get a multi-unit, territory, and you're looking to do some big things quicker, sure, they want to understand your past successes.
Right. Yeah, it's a great response to the question, Lance. The world has certainly changed. When my grandfather, and he came to this country, Lance, he had the same job. He worked in a spring factory in Queens, New York. From the day he started to his retirement. My dad was the same thing. He pretty much worked for the same company most of his life. But you just hear so many stories today. People being downsized. And then get just tired of working, for other people and things like that. And so
and franchising helps where anybody, truly anybody that wants to put themselves out there, can get into a franchise. There, you mentioned fish window cleaning. I have a gentleman looking at, Patchmaster or, another drywall repair company. There's absolutely a brand or multiple brands for everybody, but it all starts with the first step.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very powerful. I like how you're mentioning too, Lance, because I found the same thing. What I like about franchising as well is it doesn't discriminate. It's like you don't have to have an MBA to go into franchising. In fact, some of the franchisees I've had on the show over the years. I had one gentleman, he was kind of embarrassed to tell me, but he said he barely graduated high school. But, I mean, he ended up owning, I think it was 35 Wendy's franchises. And I said, holy God, I said, that's a lot of Wendy's.
Truly anybody can do it. And look, I was a multi-unit franchisee of Wingstop, and at Wingstop I was also president of the Franchise Advisory Council, and there were attorneys that were franchisees on the advisory council as well. And look, they have the same issues with anybody when they're new. It's like deer in the headlights. What is an attorney going to know about running a restaurant? Yeah. Your law degree is really not going to help you that much, except for the fact that maybe you don't need an attorney. Yeah. If you're doing your entity setup, maybe you still do, but everybody still goes through the exact same process. You still have to go through the training. And look, every franchise brand is about the support that you're getting, the training, and the ongoing support. That's what it is. So it's not difficult to pick the right brand today, especially because you have so much available on the internet to read about their success.
Yeah, it's so true. So what's the future of Ion Franchising, Lance? I mean, where do you see the organization maybe 3 years, 5 years down the road? It sounds like you have a book in you as well.
Oh, definitely a few books for sure. Yeah. Our business is exploding. We're adding people all over the country. I have people talking to independent businesses for franchise setup every single day. I have a group in Canada we're setting up. I have a group in the UK that we're bringing to the US that's quite successful. So it never ends. So it's really just continuing to scale through more team members, and that's it. But my bread and butter and my favorite thing is, besides the franchise setup for the small business to help them realize their dreams and talk about wealth building when you become a franchisor, when you have a hot brand, but finding anybody their perfect franchise is my favorite thing. And that's what I still do every day. I have conversations with people, and my team does as well. And again, it's free.
And if you think about the role you're playing in these people's lives, Lance, I mean, you're changing their life. You're a big part of their life, aren't you? I mean, franchising.
That's one of my favorite hashtags we use, changing lives.
Right. Because that's exactly what it is. I mean, it is a big commitment. I mean, typically you're signing a 5-year agreement, 10-year agreement. I mean, it's
typically a 10-year agreement. But Marty, it's really, it's all about, when I ask those powerful questions in the beginning, the questions are also about lifestyle. Besides the investment level, how much are you investing in yourself in a franchise? How much cash do you have on hand? What's your net worth? Just so I don't present you brands that aren't going to fit. Right. But the lifestyle piece is so important. Maybe somebody's working 2 jobs right now, and with a franchise, they can have one job. Really, of course, it's all work in the beginning. You're gonna have to work in the beginning. It's not magic, and you follow the system. You do incredibly well, and at some point, maybe you now have weekends off, or you have nights off, because that's the way the system is built, and that's your preferred lifestyle. And it's amazing how, when people's lives are changed, it's absolutely amazing. You build generational wealth at that point, where before you're a slave to a job. And it's a terrible thing to be a slave to a job when you don't want that. There are plenty of people that want to be a W-2 employee. They don't want what's perceived as a headache, or perceived as the unknown, or they don't have the money, or whatever it is. And it's okay to work for somebody else, but it was never for me. My dad told me at a young age I was probably unemployable, which was the best compliment he can ever give me.
Do you find, Lance, that a lot of these, these prospective entrepreneurs that are coming to you, I mean, in the beginning, are they just thinking in terms of one single unit? I mean, do you find that they're not looking at the big picture, that to become a multi-unit franchisee?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Marty. You know what it is? It's like climbing a ladder, or when I was a little kid, and I was taught how to go upstairs. My Aunt Lori will never let me forget this. She's much older than me. Okay, a few years older than me. Sorry, Lori, if you're listening. She taught me had to take 2 stairs at a time. That was a big deal. So look, the average person that's looking at franchises is simply looking at a single unit,
right?
One territory.
Sure.
But the reality is, I had a gentleman looking at franchises. We discussed whether he wanted multiple units or a single unit. And you know the funniest thing? When he was in the final stages with the brand, Rick that represents the brand called me and says, guess what? He's going to buy a 3-pack. He's buying 3 territories.
That's incredible.
I was like, whoa, that surprised me. I asked him. He goes, I know. He told me that Lance and I discussed it. I'm only looking at 1. But when he was presented with the opportunity and the discounts and the franchise fee for the 3, even though he and I talked about it, he decided, terrific. You know what? It is a better idea. But, you know, look, I do have plenty of people today that do come to me with a high enough net worth that are looking at bigger territories. But the majority, I'd probably say 75% are single unit operators. And even my assessment, by the way, that the free assessment on my website, which is a great tool to jump in there and just take, and you get a nice report back yourself, it tells me, are they single unit minded or are they multi-unit minded?
I see. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Interesting. It is pretty cool. I had Michael Gerber on my show a couple of times, Lance.
Oh,
and,
love it.
Yeah, he said once, he had this great quote. I mean, he had like a dozen great quotes, but he said that a lot of entrepreneurs fail not because they think too big, but they think too small, you know? And I thought that was very powerful that he said that, you know, because it never really occurred to me. And I said, I think that's true. I think a lot of entrepreneurs do sometimes think too small. You know, why not think in terms of, you know, 20 units, you know, or 30 units, you know, why just one single unit?
To be honest, what you are saying, what Michael Gerber had said is so accurate for a group of people, because if you're going to buy one little restaurant,
right,
while you'll do fine, you're still in some instances buying a job. It's your job.
Yep.
It's your company.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's hard to pull yourself out of it. Not until you get 3 can you really become a multi-unit manager.
Right.
Or my friend with all these hair salons that I talked about, where he can, he can net $1 million to $1.5 million a year off of all these hair salons, and now and of course have people in place. Well, with one hair salon, you're going to have to be there all the time on top of everything. You're not going to be able to necessarily afford the staff. So that's where scaling really helps, and having the appropriate amount of territory. Look, I have plenty of people that come to me and say, well, what size territory do I get with XYZ franchise?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, and we go through the territories, and that's when you really compare and contrast that some brands might give you a larger territory. And
that's true.
You know, you worry about scaling, you worry about growth opportunities.
Right.
But, you know, I have plenty of people that I know that are multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees. It's okay to diversify. And then other people are very focused on one brand, and that's okay too.
What's the best way, Lance, for our listeners to get more information on you and Ion Franchising? Are there any like websites or anything you can kind of like direct them to so they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. My website is Ion Franchising, franchising.com. Okay. And like I said, the free assessment is there. There's a contact form. Some people don't want to do the free assessment right away, and that's okay. There's a contact form right on there. I'm all over social media, Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, of course.
That's terrific. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you, Lance. I could have spoken to you for another 2 hours today, so I'm going to have to invite you back over the next year or so.
Anytime, Marty.
This has been my pleasure,
so
Lance. Thank you. Happy New Year to you. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com. Or you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, Don and I have been hosting Franchise Interviews now almost 6 years, if you can imagine, and it's amazing to see how far the show's come. You know, we frequently joke around that, you know, when we started the show, we started off with about 5 listeners. I think it was my mom, Don's wife, my wife, and a couple of friends and family, and that was it. And, you know, to date, we're over 4,000 listeners on a monthly basis between our radio show and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising, and, of course, our website, Franchise Interviews. So we've never done this before, but want to thank everyone for making this show such a tremendous success. During that time, 6 years of doing the show, we've had some incredible quotes on the show, and if you're a frequent listener to the show, you know what fans Don and I are of the legendary Michael Gerber. And you could take any clip or any segment from an interview we've done with Michael, and it's probably noteworthy of being in the Great Quotes in Franchising podcast, but this, I have to say, is certainly one of my favorites, and I've shared this with my students since I've heard this great quote. So here we go with the legendary Michael Gerber.
Having people, you know, stretch their imagination and to dream even bigger than what they were previously doing.
Absolutely.
And make it constructive, of course.
Yeah, because I'm actually saying that people don't fail because they dream too big. People fail because they dream too small. People fail because they don't rise above where their experience would lead them. People fail because they don't truly begin to dare to imagine something that they've never actually imagined before. And as I bring people into the dreaming room, as people participate with me, they begin to experience something they have never experienced, or if they had experienced, they'd experienced it years ago, but in some way lost the ability to dream. So it's a remarkable thing. I never would have told you I'd be doing it, but in fact I see it as the absolutely essential piece to anybody who wants to do anything, let alone buy a franchise. The beginning of that process is to dream.
You know, it's really like an awakening. I mean, in life, there's just so much that can just, you know, I guess sort of beat you down a little bit. You know, life's not easy, and there's work, and there's family, and you know, I guess over time that maybe you just don't have the time or just forget about something simple like dreaming. So you're really just reintroducing it to people, you know, kind of waking them up again, so to speak.
Well, I'm reintroducing the question, what in the hell am I here for?
Right.
What is my life? And time goes on for all of us, and it's tick-tock, tick-tock, and time goes on, and I simply become immersed in all of the doing it that I've committed myself to. And I never stop to really ask, is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to do? Is this really the entire purpose of my life? Is this really going to give me the experience that I truly am hungry for, the joy that I truly am missing right now? What in the world am I doing with myself? And I'm simply suggesting, without asking that question, in a very, very provocative way, people miss the most extraordinary opportunities that they will never see until they begin to ask the question, then who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? And these questions begin to provoke some very, very serious introspection, and that's critical for anybody who is, as you say, sitting there about to think about going off on their own, about buying a business, about buying a franchise, or about creating a business of their own. Critical, and nobody's talking about it.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So it's a critical element to entrepreneurial success, Michael. All this dreaming, I think you mentioned in the manuscript, it gives you fuel to stay up late and get up early in the morning.
Well, that's where the juice comes from.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine Michael Dell creating Dell Computer? I mean, you think about that. He He was a college student who began to diddle with this idea, the big idea, the great idea, the great result, and he created this stunning company, this extraordinary company that does what it does in a way that nobody else imagined it could be done, taking a commodity, a computer, and turning it into a product, a true invention, the way in which Dell provides customized computers in a standardized process. Customized, standardized, an extraordinary idea that rules the world today. And yet you don't hear that expression in most places. And certainly you don't hear it in franchising. Customized, standardized. How do you do that? Well, that requires entrepreneurial imagination and verve. And that's what creates absolutely stunning companies. So if you're going to do that, you might as well do something in the business you're about to create that truly...
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.